What's cooking, folks? Vermillion Phoenix here, and today we are jumping into some more Orcs Must Die 3. This time we'll be heading into the 8th scenario in the game, which is Cliffside. This is the name that's been used for a lot of maps historically in Orcs Must Die, and none of them look the same, so that's always interesting. This one feels more like, I don't know, like a side of a castle courtyard on a high mountain, but there's a bunch of pitfalls, there's some differences in elevation, and there's 3 gates. So this level will be a bit different than everything that you've played so far in the early parts of the game, and because of it, you'll have to worry more about par time due to the pathing of the enemies. But we'll talk about more of that once we get into the level. So this is the level where you first get access to Guardian Archers, and I used them the first time I played through this level to somewhat poor effect, just to get an idea of how they worked. I was able to 5-star it on War Mage, but I really wouldn't recommend them. You don't have auto Ballista for quite some time, and because of that, it does sort of detract from what you'll be going through here. You don't absolutely need the auto Ballista to 5-star this level, but it will require that you place a lot of other traps to sort of compensate for it. Now, I opted to use fewer traps when we were going through barricading the right side of the map, using the mini-map as orientation. That's important because you really don't start with a lot of coin here, and because of it, I think creating a bottleneck of some sort for your traps is kind of super important. Now, you can place the bottleneck on the left side, which probably would be a smart idea. I didn't do that here, and, every idea I do isn't actually smart, so take from that what you will. But this worked out for me, and I would just recommend, if you're going to barricade things off, barricade towards the left side. That gives you a bit more space to place more traps and keep enemies further away from your rift before they start running directly towards it. Other than that, bottlenecking and making sure that you have some protection against runners early, whether that be a grinder, an Arcane Brimstone, or whatever you decide to put up, is always a good idea. If you decide not to bring a trap, you can bring the firewall bracers, and they should serve you just as well. But you want to make sure that you don't have to deal with runners, because in the first couple of waves, they are absolutely what will give you trouble if you can take out the rest of the enemies. And if you're this far in the game, you're probably used to dealing with individual heavy targets in the first waves, because they will be coming. And the usual mix of crowd control and headshots on them does wonders. You can see it done on this ogre here with his torso spinning like a top. That is amazing. I love the physics as they're actually displayed, with the ragdolling and the body, the jibs chunking and everything like that. It's one of the best things that they've included in Orcs Must Die 3. Just the extra jibs physics is really nice. Alright, and you see this is me trying to deal with all of those kobolds that I mentioned earlier. You definitely need a plan for them, because too many mistakes and you basically ruin your attempts at getting 5 stars here. And they're basically meant to just bring your attention away from everything else, which is fine. I mean, it works sometimes. If you're able to catch them quickly, then you're fine, and that just lets you get back to doing what you need to keep everything safely defended. The bad thing about the Ice Dart Spitter here is that while it'll deal with just about everything other than the kobolds are kind of hard to hit due to its height and the fact that it fires off its arrows at a diagonal. And you can see almost every time I aim at a kobold, other things are getting closer and closer to the rift. But once we get a barricade set up to, sort of conglomerate the lines a bit, we'll be a lot better off. Now, one of the things that is going to be important if you're trying to 5-star this area is to make sure that you are placing damage dealing traps along the area of directly in front of the middle door and to the right. This is important because it's very difficult to get enough coin to completely control the pathing of the enemies so that they don't go into areas that will slow down your attempts at parring. And because of that, just adding some traps to deal damage are more effective. And it'll also allow you to clear your waves faster. They normally just waste a ton of time trying to run to the right side and then doubling back if you block off the rift there. Some arrow walls actually do a really good job of thinning out the enemies that you'll have to kill there. And a few ballista in that the similar room on the right side that we've trapped up here. You can place a few auto ballista in the front, and they'll basically be able to snipe at enemies coming towards that side, as well as shooting the ones that are turning around after they reach the barricades. It works extremely well, and because you don't have the ballista the first time you're coming through here, that's not something you would do originally. You would just have to count on probably arrow walls, because I don't think I'd recommend any other ceiling trap. The gravity wells hold enemies, and if you had just gotten them, they probably don't have the upgrade that allows them to deal damage, and that makes a significant difference here. So arrow walls, regardless of whether or not they have the fire upgrade, are probably going to be your biggest friend in this entire map, especially due to the huge amounts of damage that they deal. So when you are clearing enemies, you're going to want to run for any peons or small minions that happen to be still pathing around. I probably wasted a bit too much time trapping up the floor here. There shouldn't really be so many kobolds that I need to place that many brimstones down. But the ballista are always a good idea, mainly due to the range that they have. They'll be able to shoot down enemies really before you even have to think about them. And they'll soften up a lot of the weaker enemies before you... Or not the weaker enemies, they don't need to be softened up. The heavier targets, they'll be hit with, if you have the arcane upgrades as I do, the arcane damage, and that will basically make it so that the fire arrow walls will almost one-shot most of the heavy targets. And the arcane brimstone has a similar effect in addition to just instantly eradicating any of the kobolds, and also possibly stopping any sappers that come out. But sappers are a little bit more annoying here due to the fact that I think they come out from multiple different gates. It's a good idea to try to kind of hug the corners here and back away when you know some of the explosive archers are coming around. I was probably standing a bit too close to a lot of the cades, and I didn't actually start backing away properly until about right here. This is when you'll see me start placing the arrow walls around other sections of the map, and this is because I'm seeing the ogres or orcs. Well, orcs, ogres, there are going to be ogres coming to the right side and doubling back too. But as you see the minions going back and forth, it means that you don't have enough traps on the other sides really taking care of them. And every time you see that, that's par time wasted. So make sure you get those arrow walls up. I'm concentrating traps over here, but I really don't need quite as much. I just like to feel safe, so I put a lot of firepower in this place. The one ice dart spitter I have here is more than enough. I wouldn't recommend doubling up on a lot of those. You really don't need too much CC if things are dead already. So focus on getting that damage dealt. A dead orc's better than a crowd controlled one. And I play it a little bit too loose with the barricades here. It's a good idea to place an arcane ballista or something similar, maybe about 2 to 3 spaces ahead of the barricades. And what that'll do is anytime there's a kamikaze unit running towards it, it'll hit the brimstone and basically blow up before it gets close enough to deal any significant damage to the barricades. Because I didn't do that, I wound up, I think, having to build a new set of barricades here, and it makes things a bit more costly for you. Whereas I could have saved a bit more coin by just building those brimstones in advance. And because other enemies are doubling back, it would have worked to slow them down as well. So it's not a bad idea. So you can see that we have that ogre running through. If I wouldn't have gotten there, standing at the edge watching the ogre, it wouldn't have charged, and it probably would have taken a bit more damage. Those Cyclops Shaman you really do want to worry about, because they're not only are they able to deal damage to you with their homing projectiles, and this is me starting to build the Brimstone. I should have just built a third one. Yeah, there we go. I should have built them in a checker pattern though, so that enemies wouldn't get blown up at the same place. It also would have given me, technically, I think, better coverage. And I didn't build enough Brimstone over here in front of the barricades I was building, which was also a bit of a shame. I could have done without quite as many Ballista as we have over here, just for a couple more Brimstone, and that would have helped me out there as well. We're finally tossing up the auto Ballista up here, and because you can see the health bars through walls, you can sort of see when the pathing for the enemies is really causing a lot of doubling back. You're going to see enemies come down and then go to the left, just due to the fact that the right gate is open. You really don't want to be near these barricades when those dynamite archers show up, and I should have been paying a bit more attention there, but I didn't, and we almost lost barricades there. I wouldn't have had the money to replace more than a single barricade if we lost something there. So if we did something like lost 2 cades, that would have literally been the level gone. Luckily, I would have had a little bit of CC in the ice amulet and the other traps that we had set up in that area to try to help, but it definitely would have been slowing things down. That could have been better put in, a couple more Brimstone or some auto Ballista to help pepper the enemies with more damage, and that's literally what I started doing here, which again isn't a bad idea. It's not as consistent as the Brimstone in taking down enemies, however the extra damage that they deal is really nice at making sure that heavier enemies are not doubling back as easily, and you'll start seeing the ogres and other things taken out surprisingly well just due to the addition of those Ballista. So from here, this level is pretty much solved. There's not a lot else that you have to do. The rest of the cash you get up is basically just the DPS harder, so you can get things cleared out quicker and meet a better par time. But there's not too much else special that you have to do here. If you did have some archers, you could place them in some areas behind where you have those barricades there. I wouldn't recommend placing them over here because they just become targets for the dynamite archers, but yeah, there we go. So we get lucky here. They start getting close. We lose those barricades, and we just shotgun that archer with the ice amulet as they get through. And again, that's just another situation. You don't want to stand near your barricades when you hear explosive archers and things like that coming. A better place to stand for me would have been at the top of where the rift is, and then just fire at the enemies as they're coming around the corner. Mainly because there's no chance of the barricades taking damage up there, as well as the rift rapidly healing you if anything happens to be shooting at you. It'll allow you to tank just about anything in the game, as long as it can't one-shot you. So, you can sit through the fire from Cyclops Shaman. You can sit through repeated fire from, any melee unit. Even, I think they made it so that heavy units no longer prioritize hitting you over going into the rift, which was something that used to happen a long time ago. But, yeah, that doesn't anymore. So either way, use the rift for range defense. Just don't expect enemies to fight you over just dealing your rift damage, because ultimately that's the win condition. But yeah, this is pretty much it now. They do try to go a bit ham-fisted with the last wave, but if you've built up things even reasonably well, especially with more arrow walls than I have here, then this should be super, super easy at this point. Nothing's getting through here without a probably a billion shields. And you'll see, like, they're dropping a lot of power-ups, coin, things like that. I don't even need the money at this point. If you have fewer upgrades on your traps, because most of my stuff should be fully upgraded here, then it might be a little bit better. Or if you happen to not have the trap trinket that improves the refire rate of all your traps, then it might be a little bit harder to get this cleared. But the alternative there would be just to have more arrow walls. Like, that's why we have all of this extra coin. You could place it around quite a few places, and the extra damage that you're able to deal with it is huge. It is definitely going to be noticeable every time you place an additional arrow wall down. And yeah, you see, I could probably have placed an additional 5 arrow walls and covered even more area. But that's Cliffside. Let me know what you guys think of this particular run. Are you guys enjoying this? Like, feel free to leave me a comment on what you think of the series thus far. If there's anything that you'd like to see regarding this game or any of the others that I'll have been posting over the next couple months, or that you've just seen on the channel, feel free to let me know. Also, if you enjoyed this and would like to see more games that I'm playing, you can feel free to catch my streams over at twitch.tv/VermillionPhoenix, spelled just like the name is on YouTube. And I stream there pretty often. Like, you'll be able to check out the VODs and see whatever I'm doing when I'm live. And I'll be using that content to make like reviews and stuff for a lot of indie titles, but you'll be able to see them when they're fresh over there. And lastly, if you enjoy seeing stuff like this, feel free to subscribe to the channel, and you can catch what I'm doing on YouTube whenever a new video goes live. I sincerely appreciate it in any capacity, whichever you do. I just want you guys to make sure that, as always, you're taking care of yourselves. And until the next video, stream, or, you know, we have a conversation again, as always, take care of yourselves. That's the most important thing these days. Have a good one, folks. Peace.